Welcome to an hour of HealthMade Radio. HealthMade is a community for natural health seekers where we educate people about common health conditions and share extensive research on the most effective natural health treatments and promote legislation that protects our health freedoms. A core concept belief is in the innate intelligence and healing power of the body, and if properly supported spiritually, emotionally, and nutritionally, it can find its way back to health. HealthMade Radio will bring information from integrative health experts throughout the world. Check us out at healthmade.co. Health is what you make it. I'm Dr. Michael Karlfeldt, and I will be your host. Today's guest is Master Herbalist David Christopher, son of world-renowned late Master Herbalist and Naturopathic Dr. John Raymond Christopher. For the last 20 years, David Christopher has been a popular worldwide speaker. He has generated new ideas on the management of high blood pressure, diabetes, and autoimmune diseases, and was one of the first to discourage the use of Prozac in favor of natural methods. Alarmed by the growing use of Ritalin, David developed an alternative program for ADD and ADHD. In 1974, David Christopher took his place by his father's side at the School of Natural Healing. David's book, entitled An Herbal Legacy of Courage, is a loving tribute to his father. Today, thousands of individuals practice the art of natural healing thanks to David's continued directorship and teaching. Many more receive herbal instruction from David and his wife, Fawn, through their weekly radio program, A Healthier You. David lectures internationally and offered educational counseling by phone for over 16 years. And David, it's such an honor to have you on the show here today.
Well, thank you for having me on.
Tell me a little bit, how was it growing up with your father and the impact that he was having in people's lives? I mean, this is something that you saw day in and day out as a little child. How would you explain that world for you?
Well, it was certainly different. And just to show you an example, when I went with my dad to National Health Federation convention down in Pasadena, I was so ecstatic to see somebody else besides myself drinking carrot juice. I mean, it's like we were such lone wolves, and there was like nobody else, and it was just wonderful to see that other people did the same things we did. I thought we were the only ones in the world.
It's so fascinating to me because I've been doing this for about 30-some years now, and what people take for granted now, what you can go to Whole Foods or you can go to some co-op or Trader Joe's even, and you buy all these natural foods and supplements and juices, but that was not that common growing up. I mean, that. Oh,
yeah. You can even go to like Costco. I mean, just big places and get organic produce.
Yeah, exactly. We had, I remember telling people 20-some years ago getting off of gluten, and I just felt sorry for them knowing what the gluten-free bread tasted like.
Yeah. In fact, it was interesting during the 60s. It's like, if it was a health food, it must have tasted bad.
Yeah, exactly.
It had to taste bad if it was going to be healthy.
Exactly. You could almost use it as a weapon to throw on somebody.
Yeah, really.
Yeah. So tell me, I mean, was it easy for your father to spread the word and to spread the knowledge? And I know the pharmaceutical industry is pretty strong nowadays. How was it at that time? Could he?
Oh, it was horrible. I mean, he was arrested multiple times. He was put in jail. He was taken to court 6 times.
And how, I mean, we're seeing that taking place. I mean, how was that? What kind of impact did that have on you? I mean, seeing that your dad was being arrested and put in jail.
Well, yeah, I saw the injustice in it, and I think that's maybe one of the things that attracted me to the field. I was trained in another field and couldn't get a job in that when I got married, and so my dad offered me a job with his herb business, and says, until you find something else. And I came, I enjoyed, I stayed, and been my whole life now.
And you still haven't found something else?
Well, the other thing, I actually graduated in theater.
Oh, okay.
And so we still get involved with community theater, But no, this is my passion now.
Yeah. Well, we're so grateful for what you're doing. That's truly amazing. So, what people in those days? I mean, nowadays it seems like the treatments almost have to become more and more complex because we're dealing with more and more stressors, more and more toxins, less nutrition in food, and so forth. Do you have you seen kind of a change in how you address health issues with people now versus when your father was alive?
No.
The same principles.
We do the same thing. Everybody else changes,
And what are the principles that you've seen kind of been the steadfast principles? If you do,
well, the main steadfast principle would be the whole is greater than its parts.
Yes.
I know, it sounds that's logical, but look at it. Everyone's doing just the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
They're concentrating substances and extracting substances and doing parts and things. And they're not dealing with the whole. And that's the problem. The safety lies in the whole.
And can you explain that a little bit more? Because people get so enamored by this chemical active constituent and makes it so much more potent, and it's a pharmaceutical grade, and all these different little bells and whistles that people get so excited about. Tell me a little bit more. What does the whole mean, and why is that better?
Well, let's take it to the present, okay? Let's talk about cannabis. The safety is in the whole. There have been no people die from cannabis usage. That hasn't happened. Zero. Look how many people die from alcohol, from the substance itself to the way it impairs. And, as far as that's concerned, as long as we're there, it's like, I'd rather deal with a dumb person than an angry one.
Absolutely.
Nobody gets angry on cannabis.
No.
But the thing is here in Utah, they were trying to get cannabis legalized, and the legislature dragged their feet. And finally, they had a people initiative, and it passed. And what the other side was saying was, this is going to open the way for full plant marijuana. It's like, duh, that's where the safety is.
Yeah.
What they want to do is make a drug out of it. And that's what they're working feverishly to do, is make a drug from cannabis. And I tell you right now, as soon as they get one, people will start dying. Nobody's died from cannabis, but when they make a drug out of it, people will die. No ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Yeah.
The safety is in the whole. The whole plant is safe. The particulates are not. And that's the way it is with every drug.
So when you look at the whole, then it's kind of like you have all these other chemical constituents within the whole that all balance each other out, and they all create kind of safety measures within itself.
Correct.
And so this is what you see then in pretty much all the different herbs that you use and all the different food substances that we eat.
Yeah, when we make an extract of herbs, we make a whole extract, so we're getting all the components, except maybe the fiber, But there are ways of extracting herbs to get just one chemical substance out of it. And I really dislike them calling those herbs anymore. Those are now drugs. So
one of the things that you really worked hard against was the usage of Prozac. You really felt that it was important to find natural solutions for that. Why did you pick? Obviously, you worked on other things as well, not just that. But why was that so important to you? And what kind of solution did you find?
Well, most people haven't seen the devastation that drug causes. And one of my very best friends, Dr. Ann Blake Tracy, is the leading expert on specific serotonin reuptake inhibitors. And so when a lawsuit is filed, of course the drug companies will stall and try to offer something else and whatever, Then what the people damaged will do, the attorneys will call Dr. Tracy, fly her out there to testify. In all these years, she's never testified, because as soon as she comes, they settle, and they settle quickly, and they'll settle for millions. Because they make billions off that drug, they can afford to settle for millions.
Yeah.
And so there's been a lot of devastation caused, and we don't see it because they've settled and the records are sealed, and you can't get back into them.
Yeah, they don't want to have all the devastation on public record, because that's more detrimental than anything else.
But what's interesting is every one of the school shootings has involved those drugs.
Absolutely, and it's one of the things that I say. It's not the gun that kills; it's the one that's holding it, and the majority of people that are holding it, or pretty much everyone, like you're saying, has been on some kind of antidepressant or mind-altering pharmaceutical.
And the specific serotonin reuptake inhibitors like Prozac basically shut the front of your brain off from the back of your brain. So basically you have no conscience.
No, exactly. We're going to take a quick little break, and we'll be right back. I'm here with Master Herbalist David Christopher. You're listening to HealthMade Radio. I'm Dr. Michael Karlfeldt. Welcome back to HealthMade Radio. I'm here with David Christopher. David, tell me what kind of a solution, because there's just so many people dealing there with depression, anxiety, things that then Prozac and medications like that can be very useful. I shouldn't say useful, I'm meaning that what medical doctors use them for. What solutions do you see, and what kind of help can you and herbs offer these people?
Well, we need to get them on proper nutrition. Sugar is one of the worst things for depression. That's what a lot of people turn to. And the alcohol and all these other things are actually worsening the situation. And what they try to do is they try to control serotonin levels. Well, if you have too high of serotonin levels, you become manic, become depressed. If you have suicidal tendencies, too high levels of serotonin. Too low of levels of serotonin, you have suicidal tendencies. So I didn't want to get involved with trying to control serotonin levels. What I looked at was, well, let's just do the same thing we do for the rest of the body. Since the head is part of the body, a lot of people think it's totally separate. But what we decided to do for that situation was nourish the brain. So we came up with a formula that basically was a formula that carried nutrition to the brain. And what we figured was a well-nourished brain would function the way it's supposed to and put out the serotonin levels that it was supposed to have. And it works really well. Actually, I threw a little St. John's wort into the formula just to make it look like it was a depression formula.
Yeah, that's where I was going, where we're talking a little bit about chemical constituents, because a lot of times you see, with depression, people use St. John's wort, and then they say, has X amount of this active ingredient, as if that active ingredient is the only thing that does something. So.
And a lot of times they're wrong. So this is the active ingredient, and they'll find out that wasn't the active ingredient.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So the science really isn't there. And besides, even if it was, the whole is greater than the part.
So what in this blend? I mean, what herbs did you choose, and how did you address feeding the brain?
I chose wheatgrass juice, barley grass juice, alfalfa grass juice, and I piggybacked it onto ginkgo, because ginkgo goes straight to the brain. Added a little gotu kola, because that's like comfrey for the brain, and the formula is really good.
That's beautiful. And it's safe for anyone, safe for children, for adults, it doesn't matter.
Absolutely, and it's not just for depression, it's also what we use for ADD.
That's amazing. And what kind of results have you seen?
for example, I had this gal in Florida that had called me because her son was not paying attention in school, so they put him on Ritalin. And then he became too much of a case to handle. And so they had to withdraw him from school because he was a problem. And when they got him home, I mean, he was like, just, you couldn't handle him. And he broke 27 windows in the house, you know?
Yeah.
And so we told her about the Mind Track formula. And she gave it to him. It calmed him down. It helped him to focus, and now he's doing really well in school. And we see that time and time again, that you can actually get better focus with these natural herbs that feed the brain than you can with something that's trying to control it.
Yeah, because all these different neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine, and you have the GABA, acetylcholine, etc. I mean, all of those are more in response to what's going on throughout the whole body.
And if you feed the brain, then everything's taken care of because the brain knows what it needs to do.
Yeah, it find its own balance, and then you use the intelligence of the innate intelligence within the individual to balance itself out instead of trying to manipulate it.
Yeah, one of the things that's current right now is influenza.
Yes.
And so I've often said in lectures, and people have quoted me as saying the best way to get the flu is to lick doorknobs or to take the flu vaccine.
Yeah.
I had a very dear friend that would do the flu vaccine every year, and seemed to always get the flu anyway. But this last time she took it, that wasn't even the flu going around. It was in that flu vaccine, and she died from that flu that was in the flu vaccine.
Oh. Yeah.
So yeah, I really dislike that. And besides, the records show that it's very ineffective, and most years it's down around 19% effectiveness, if even that.
And my wife, she's heavily involved in legislation here in Idaho in regards to protecting our health freedoms and stopping the mandatory need for vaccinations of children. And obviously flu becomes a huge part of that. And I think there were some 60 million flu vaccines that were given last year. So, but as you said, it's very, very ineffective because it's a guessing game as to what kind of a strain. And then in addition to that, all the other adjuvants and preservatives that they throw into that flu vaccine, which bypasses the normal routes of introduction through skin or mouth. It goes directly into the bloodstream. So in your point of view, then obviously flu vaccine would not be the best thing to protect yourself against the flu.
No, anytime you have a vaccine that's a live virus, people with compromised immune systems are kind of going to come down with the disease. Yeah. As night follows day.
And the ones with a strong immune system, they really don't need to take the vaccine anyway.
That's right. And, as a preservative, they put mercury in there.
Yeah.
You all know the problem with mercury.
Yeah, exactly.
And then the ones that aren't live viruses, they have to put an adjuvant in, the aluminum, and that aluminum goes right to the brain.
Yeah, and it's and then you have all these neurological conditions. I have patients coming in, after getting vaccine, dealing with seizure disorders and pain disorders and other kind of neurological disorders, right after. So,
and so what we do instead of a flu vaccine is we look at a study that was came out of Israel, and I think some subsequent ones out of Norway and some other places that showed that elderberry would shorten the time for a flu but also that it would prevent flu from happening. And so we look at elderberry as the herbal prevention and cure for the flu. The double-blind study showed 2 days recovery for people using the elderberries and 6 days on normal.
Yeah, so that's huge.
And as far as prevention is concerned, it's really interesting. If you look at it, when does the flu happen? Seldom ever in the summer. It's always in the winter.
Yeah.
We know it has something to do with the temperatures and maybe the humidity, maybe the lack of sun. And that's where we found the big thing is the lack of sun.
Yeah.
So we know that when you're out in the sun, that the sun penetrates and stimulates the
stimulates the immune system, and
but it stimulates the cholesterol.
Yeah.
And then produces vitamin D.
Yeah.
And so the vitamin D levels, when they're high, you don't get the flu. When the levels are low, then you get the flu.
And they've seen with the studies, I know that for children doing 2,000 IU of vitamin D per day, that it beats flu vaccines any day of the week, just that alone.
And isn't it interesting that they did a study with dermatologists, and they found that they were mostly deficient in vitamin D because they're following their own stupid advice.
Yeah, exactly.
They don't get out in the sun.
And they're slathering garbage onto their skin.
Yeah, and when you put that SPF, whatever, 1,000 on, then you do not make vitamin D.
No.
With that on there, And so nobody's saying go out in the sun and burn because that's what causes cancer. Sun doesn't cause cancer. In fact, the sun cures cancer.
Yeah.
But you need the sun, and you need the sun in your eyes, not looking at the sun, but that full spectrum of light. And people that wear sunglasses, that's wrong. You're blocking what the eyes need. And as far as what they call the dangerous rays, that's ameliorated with just eating a lot of vitamin C-rich foods, especially berries, with the antioxidants.
Yeah, no, they did a study on, I can't remember if it was rabbits, where they exposed them to a lot of sun, and that they had one control group that ate very nutritional deficient food, and the other one then filled with antioxidants. And they noticed that the ones that ate a lot of antioxidants, none of them developed any kind of skin cancer, in addition to then that they're much likely, like you mentioned, less likely to develop any other type of cancer than any other animal that were not exposed to any sun. So it's really fascinating. We're going to take a quick little break, and we'll be right back. I'm here with David Christopher, Master Herbalist, and also heading one of the, I would say, the premier schools in regards to becoming an herbalist, the School of Natural Healing. Welcome back to HealthMade Radio. I'm Dr. Michael Karlfeldt. I'm here with Master Herbalist David Christopher, also son of late, very famous Master Herbalist and Naturopathic Dr. John Raymond Christopher. So, talking about the flu a little bit further, so you noticed then that just the elderberry was enough, vitamin D, then obviously vitamin C, zinc.
And a proper diet, of course, and exercise and everything else. All those things, just being healthy is what prevents the flu.
Absolutely. And regards to also then sunglasses, you're mentioning out that was crucial for the eyes, but also it's also the stimulation then of the pineal gland. Is that correct?
Yeah, and the medical profession seems to have this all wrong as far as the sun's concerned, and having people wear sunglasses and cover up and everything, but it's that natural light that heals, and it's the artificial light that man has made that is deteriorating, that deteriorates the eyes. Now, Bono from U2, he always wears those yellow glasses. That's to filter out the light from artificial lights that is damaging to his eyes. He has a medical condition. It's not just for fashion's sake. He wears those yellow glasses to protect his eyes from artificial light.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's fascinating. So
It kind of is.
Yeah, so it lets in then all the beneficial sun rays light. I mean,
Yes.
Okay, fascinating.
One thing that people call me all the time for, and it kind of drives me crazy, is a GERD.
Yes.
Gastroesophageal reflux disease. And so what doctors give them are these like antacids.
Because people think that it's, I feel acid in my throat, so it must mean that I have too much acid in the stomach, so let's suppress it even more.
And that's the whole point of the medical profession, is they're saying you make too much hydrochloric acid. And then they give those, what are they called, receptor antagonists for hydrochloric acid.
Yeah, proton inhibitors. And
Tagamet and Zantac and those.
Mm-hmm.
Which would make sure that the body doesn't get any hydrochloric acid for 12 hours. And then you got the proton pump inhibitors, like Prilosec and Prevacid, at 24 hours. I mean, wow, isn't it nice? We've stopped the body from working for 24 hours.
Yeah.
What I found is that people as we get older make less hydrochloric acid, not more. So as we get older, we don't make enough hydrochloric acid. And so what's happening is, because you don't have enough hydrochloric acid to break down your proteins, and your body won't move them out without that, then what happens is it just sits there and sits there and sits there. And finally, about the time you're ready to go to bed, the body finally puts the hydrochloric acid together, robs Peter to pay Paul, and in comes the hydrochloric acid, floods in there just about the time you're ready to lay down. And up the esophagus it goes, and then you get the problem.
Yeah.
And it's a timing issue. It's a timing issue is what we're looking at. And so what we found is you just put a little bit of cayenne pepper in your mouth prior to eating or just after eating, and immediately your body makes hydrochloric acid.
Mm.
They did the study with dogs where they inserted a tube through their esophagus and made sure there was no connection between the mouth and the stomach, and then they measured hydrochloric acid levels. And they gave these dogs all different things, to see if anything would stimulate the production of hydrochloric acid. When they got to cayenne pepper, bam! Hydrochloric acid flooded into the stomach. And so what we've decided to do is have people take cayenne pepper to put the hydrochloric acid in there when it's needed.
Yeah.
And so people that have been having all these problems, they do that, and then they get the hydrochloric acid in the stomach when it's needed, and then they don't have this GERD anymore. That's all it takes, is putting the hydrochloric acid in there when it's needed. If you give the body something it's supposed to make, like if you take hydrochloric acid, then your body will stop making it.
Yeah.
So that's not a good idea either.
No.
But this cayenne works really well. And you can't take a capsule because the sensors are in the mouth. When you taste it, then you make the hydrochloric acid.
How much do you need to do? Because obviously cayenne pepper is very hot.
It is, and you don't need the very hottest in the world. But if you have the really hot, then you need less.
Yeah.
But I tend to take about a 40,000 heat unit cayenne, and that's a mild one. They get them up there, about 200, 300,000.
Yeah.
But I take like an eighth of a teaspoon, just the dry powder, and put it in my mouth.
Oh.
Then I mix the saliva with it, and it gets really hot. I swallow it, so it burns the throat, too, as it goes down. And immediately my body makes the hydrochloric acid, and I don't have any problem anymore with breaking down the proteins.
Yeah.
And you realize that the proteins have to be broken down because the body cannot use protein until it's broken down to its component parts. So the hydrochloric acid, breaks the protein down into chains of amino acids. That's then put into the intestinal tract, released into the intestinal tract, and then the pancreas puts out the enzymes to take those chains of amino acids and break them down into individual amino acids. And then the components of protein, then we uptake and make our own protein from that. Because our whole immune system operates on the body recognizing our DNA with our protein and protecting it, and any other DNA that comes in will be attacked. So you cannot inject protein into somebody else and not have an adverse effect from your immune system. So protein has to be broken down totally and then uptaken, then utilized that way. So these people that are like taking collagen,
yeah,
it's like, hello, collagen is a protein and it has to be broken down to its individual amino acids, and then that can be put together as your own collagen. So these people that get injections of collagen in their lips and stuff, they're going to become allergic to whatever source that collagen came from.
So in essence, you need to, you take these expensive collagen products, you still have to break it down like you would have to break down any other food into their individual amino acid components.
Yeah, people seem to have the idea that they're going to eat collagen, bone broth tea and everything, and that it's going to just magically go into your system. No, it's going to be broken down into its component parts, the proline, the hydroxyproline, the glycine, and then that is used to make collagen. The body does not use collagen unless it's broken down and then used.
So
it's component parts.
So let's say you have this individual that's on some acid blocker, and they eat protein, they don't digest it fully, it goes undigested or not, very partially digested into the smaller intestines. It lays there, and since it's not digested, it starts to then rot or
what will happen is bacteria will act on it. And the action of bacteria, you get the side effect of gas and bloating. So a lot of the gas and bloating people are seeing is because they can't break the protein down properly. So bacteria has to act on it. So that's the side effect of that.
So these components that then are created in the intestinal tract from the bacteria acting on it, what does it do to the intestinal lining?
Well, it can ill affect that and cause inflammation. One of the big problems we see is that if they've taken antibiotics, that wipes out the friendly flora in your intestinal tract. And when the flora has been wiped out, and one of the friendly flora is Candida albicans. It breaks down sugar and alcohol. But when it's not in check with other friendly flora, then it's reintroduced. All you have to do is put your finger on your desk and put it to your mouth, and you've got Candida albicans back in your body. It's in the environment. So that goes in, and then it takes up all the space, and with no checks or balances, it actually changes its morphology, grows appendages, whips against the intestinal tract, and creates all these lesions, seeking the constant glucose that's in the blood. When it does that, then we have these lesions that are left, and then these proteins that are unbroken down because you don't have the hydrochloric acid to do that, these proteins then can enter the bloodstream, and then your immune system attacks those proteins, and then you become allergic to that food. I had a gal in one of my classes that was 27 years old, and she'd been on antibiotics since she was 3 or 4 years old, every year on antibiotics. And that girl was allergic to everything. They were bringing foods in from other countries because she was allergic to everything.
Yeah, so it's almost then that the antibiotics and then also these acid blockers, they create an environment that promotes an autoimmune diseases.
Yeah, and then as far as just in the stomach itself, H. pylori cannot survive in hydrochloric acid. So this H. pylori they're finding in the stomach of all these people most likely was caused because they shut off the hydrochloric acid.
Yeah. Exactly.
Then as far as the cure is concerned, it's the cayenne pepper, and then that also gives us a clue as when to take cayenne pepper and when not. So you don't want to take cayenne orally if you're not eating food. You can't taste it because it's going to make hydrochloric acid. You don't want hydrochloric acid in your stomach when there isn't any food there.
No.
But if you take a capsule of cayenne pepper, then that negates that, and that's so if you're working on like high blood pressure or heart disease or anything like that, then take capsules of cayenne pepper.
I'm going to take a quick break, and I'd like to go into a little bit more of the heart disease, since that's such a huge thing. You're listening to HealthMade Radio. I'm here with Master Herbalist David Christopher. I am Dr. Michael Karlfeldt. Welcome back to HealthMade Radio. I am Dr. Michael Karlfeldt, and I'm here today with Master Herbalist David Christopher. We were talking a little bit about digestive issues and how cayenne pepper can really solve the GERD and acid reflux and all these that people are on medication for pretty much the rest of their life. So how is the timing? You do that right before eating?
You can either do it before or after. The main thing is you need to taste it. If it's just mixed in food, you might not get the benefit. You need to get that really hot sensation in your mouth. And I don't know if you're going to get the same thing with vinegared cayenne, like in hot sauces.
Okay, because some people do like apple cider vinegar before eating, and that seems to help them.
And that apple cider vinegar really helps the digestive process, especially with the carbohydrates.
Okay, and
helping to break those down.
And the timing for that is just a little bit before eating as well, correct?
You can do it a little before or a little after.
Okay. So,
and then, there's only three foods that we eat. We eat fats, we eat carbohydrates, and we eat proteins. So we've talked about proteins, we've talked about carbohydrates. To help break down fats, all you need to do is put something bitter in your mouth. And we all used to eat bitters, and we could taste that they were bitter. A lot of lettuce is bitter. A lot of these things are bitter. Dandelion leaves are really bitter. But those bitter tastes stimulate the liver through the gallbladder to release bile, which helps to break down the fats.
Yeah.
So those are the three foods we eat, and those are the three flavors we need, the sour, the pungent, and the bitter.
Yeah, and nowadays people are so afraid of things that does not taste just like sugar. It's like sugar is just taking over all taste stimulations. And
sugar or salt.
Yeah, exactly. So going into the cardiovascular crisis that we've been dealing with for quite a while, and you were mentioning then cayenne pepper, how that can be beneficial even in that scenario. That can
stimulate circulation so that you actually can carry the nutrients to the heart.
So with cayenne pepper at that time, you've seen people then dealing with high blood pressure and any other cardiovascular that cayenne pepper can be beneficial.
Oh, absolutely. The whole thing with high blood pressure, this is another thing that rubs me the wrong way, is where does this signal come from where the blood pressure is raised? Here's what happens. You've got trillions of cells in your body, and they all do exactly what they're supposed to do as long as they get a constant supply of oxygen and nutrients. When that supply is cut off from being uptight and tightening down your vascular system, or taking caffeine and tightening down your vascular system, or eating the wrong foods and clogging up your vascular system, that makes it so the nutrients don't get to your cells. Well, and then when they don't get the constant supply of oxygen and nutrients, then they start to malfunction. And then from there, if that continues, then they'll atrophy. Those cells will die. Before that happens, they'll send off a distress signal that they're not getting the nutrients and oxygen they need. Central nervous system picks up on that distress signal, and in a life-saving mechanism, the central nervous system sends the signal to the circulatory system to raise the blood pressure to force blood out to those cells so they don't die. So if you artificially lower your blood pressure, you're assuring those cells die. So if you want to die of kidney disease, liver disease, heart disease, take high blood pressure medication.
That's a fail-safe for that. And also I see the same then dealing with cardiovascular and with dealing with cholesterol issues.
Oh, I don't know if you want to get me on that one. I remember back in the early 80s, in the 70s, doctors didn't care what your cholesterol level was. They didn't care. They really didn't care. And when they came up with Lipitor, then all of a sudden they cared. And so they came up with a drug that lowered cholesterol. Now everybody seems to need Lipitor or the other statins. You're going to die if you don't have these statins. Well, the thing is, cholesterol is a nutrient. We just talked about it stimulating the sun-stimulating cholesterol to make vitamin D. Also, the body makes hormones from cholesterol. Also, the body makes new cells from cholesterol. The body uses cholesterol to repair damaged cells. And so, these guys came up with a drug that stops the liver from making a nutrient. It's a nutrient. And all this stuff about high-density lipoproteins and low-density lipoproteins, that's not cholesterol.
No.
Those are the transport mechanisms to get cholesterol to where they need to go and to get them back to the liver after they've been oxidized. If it's such a problem, then the body would dump that damaged cholesterol into the bowels and get rid of it. But it's so valuable that it takes it back to the liver to be refurbished as good cholesterol. So the only bad cholesterol out there has nothing to do with high-density or low-density lipoproteins. Those are just transport mechanisms.
Yeah.
What it has to do with is oxidized cholesterol. So when you eat foods that are highly processed and have free radical oxygen in them, that's what attaches to cholesterol and damages it and oxidizes it. So if people would just quit eating their sugar pops and frosted flakes and, all these cold cereals, that would be the major place where they're getting free radical oxygen. And that's what's damaging their cholesterol. Also, charbroiled meat and, frying and stuff, that's what causes this free radical oxygen that's so damaging to the cholesterol, that oxidizes it. So cholesterol is a nutrient. Why would anybody come up with a drug to stop your liver from making a nutrient? And that's exactly what that drug does. All a statin does is blocks the liver's enzyme action from making cholesterol. What a stupid drug.
It is. I mean, I can't even. Here you have one of the most fundamental building blocks, cholesterol. We make our whole steroid pathways is based upon cholesterol. All our sex hormones, stress hormones, how we deal with how our immune system functions and deal with stress. All of that is based upon cholesterol, and that is what we want to make a drug to inhibit and block.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This talking about cholesterol reminds me we were talking about Prozac.
Yeah.
And Prozac is a fluorine-based drug. And what the fluorine does is they use fluorine to penetrate the tissue to get into the brain. So they need to use a lot more drug if they don't have the fluorine. But if they add fluorine to the drug, then that penetrates and damages the tissue to get the drug into the brain. And so we have to be really careful of all these fluorine-based drugs. And we need to be careful of fluorine, too. I mean, fluorine is on the periodic chart with chlorine and bromelain, as antagonists to iodine. Yeah. And so a lot of the thyroid problems we're seeing today is caused from fluorine in your water.
Yeah, and it used to be like in bread products. It was a discussion way back when whether you should use chlorine or bromide.
Yeah.
And they chose bromide, and because of that, from all the bread products, now we are continually depleting ourselves of chlorine because the bromide will then jump into where iodine should have been.
Right.
And so
that we're seeing so much low-functioning thyroid because of that.
Yeah.
And I don't know what these dentists have with this love affair with fluoride, but it actually causes tooth decay. Doesn't clear it up. Fluorine is really one of the most reactive compounds in the periodic chart, along with the chlorine and the bromine, But what it does is it actually attaches to the enamel. Doesn't become a part of it. It attaches to it, and then it flakes off. Then you get pitting in your teeth.
Yeah.
And that opens the way for cavities.
Yeah, it's It's so atrocious when there's such simple solutions, and the simple solutions are just to eat normal whole foods, drink plenty of water, so you can flush the system, move your body, be out in the sunshine, and you don't need all this junk to control.
Yeah, you'd go barefoot in the grass and you ground yourself out. You know?
Yeah.
They're the natural principles. We can go back to Dr. Christopher's time. We can go back to Hippocrates' time. They're the same things, fresh air, clean water, sunshine, grounding. They were using those back then,
Exactly.
That's what I'm saying. We didn't change.
No.
Everybody else keeps changing, and it's like we still use the simple things that are so effective.
The things that God created for us.
That's right.
Yeah, he knew.
But you don't have to pay money for.
No, exactly. Somebody already made it for us.
Yeah.
So tell me, and wrapping up, tell me a little bit about your school and how people can get involved, learning more about what they can do to more actively promote their own health and the health of their own family and their community.
Dr. Christopher had so many patients that he just couldn't handle everyone that wanted to come see him. And so even all the way through his practice, he would teach people how to do it themselves so they didn't have to come back,
Yeah.
And so then he came up with the idea in 1952 of starting a school to teach people how to take care of themselves, and take care of their loved ones. And so it is not really a school. I mean, you can get a profession out of it, but his main point was, this is simple stuff. Everybody can do it. Here's how we do it. And so basically we're training people to take care of themselves, take care of their families. What our philosophy is an herbalist in every home and a master herbalist in every community, that they can go to and rely on for updated information. And boy, I'll tell you, we wouldn't be going bankrupt as a country because of our healthcare business.
Yeah, no, it's what they're trying to do out there to mess people's health up. It will keep us in business for a long time.
That's right.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, the best way to be healthy is to stay away from them.
Exactly. Well, David,
when I was in India just recently lecturing, there was a bunch of us at this symposium for cancer prevention, and only two of us were quoted, and one of them was me when I said the best way to, prevent cancer is to stay away from us in the United States, our American doctors.
Yeah, it's amazing how efficient we've become in messing up normal physiology to create disease. Yeah. Well, David, it's been such a pleasure having you on the show, and I'm so grateful that you took the time to share your immense knowledge and for everything that you do throughout the world to educate people about what they can do to achieve optimum health. Thank you so much.
And I appreciate you for having me on.
Absolutely, my pleasure. That's all for today. You're listening to HealthMade Radio. You can find us at healthmade.co. Health is what you make it.